I am what could be politely described as type A and less politely as a control freak. And that can be a real problem when you're a dungeon master, because D&D is inherently unpredictable. That's a feature, not a bug. Everyone at the table is contributing to the direction of the story, not just me, which means I don't have control. But even though I know that's normal, I still panic when a game takes a direction I haven't prepared for. Yeah, I know how to improvise, but I feel more comfortable when I have prepared material to fall back on. I'm like a tightrope walker who can keep my balance fine as long as I know there's a net under me. Remove the net and all bets are off. So I decided to fix this problem through exposure therapy, to run a D&D game where it was impossible for me to prepare, a completely randomized session. What's the plot hook? Randomized. Who are the NPCs? Randomized. What monsters do they fight? Carefully selected and balanced to create an engaging narrative experience. I'm just kidding, they're randomized. I knew there were two possible outcomes here. One, maybe it would go great, and I'd learn that I don't need to be so scared of my games going in unexpected directions, that I am capable of improvising literally any part of a game session. Or two, maybe it would be awful, and I would prove once and for all that I was right, and my need to micromanage is completely justified. Turns out, there was a secret third thing. Running this game actually gave me a completely new perspective on which parts of DMing are actually important, and which parts you can just outsource to the dice. Anyway, before I could run a no prep game, I had to prepare for being unprepared. I promise this makes sense, just hear me out. Well, I know this is supposed to be a no prep game, and I have to do some measure of prep in order to prepare to run a no prep game. And that's not me cheating or being a control freak. I just need to have the tools that I will need in order to randomize stuff, which mostly means random tables. Oh yeah, here we go. Adventure situations based on level. That is actually a new thing. I don't believe the 2014 DMG has this. What I'm thinking is I do a few rolls in advance just so that I can have an idea of the premise in my brain before we start. But is that cheating? Should I be doing those rolls behind my DM screen right when we start? I probably should. My anxious heart just wants to know what I'm gonna run. Appearance, abilities, talents, mannerisms. Wow, there's a ton for NPCs. I don't know why I said wow. I'm pretty sure I made a whole video about this. My brain is like a pasta strainer. Oh, there's a ton of stuff for villains.
I'm gonna go get some Starbucks.
Ah, for me?
No, just for me.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I know I've talked about these books a bunch, but I just really like them. The Solo Adventurer's Toolbox, books 1 and 2. I use these when I play D&D solo, but they are basically just crafted to allow you to randomly generate everything that you need in order to play a game, to replace the Dungeon Master, basically. The most important thing, I think, that these books have is the Oracle, which is a yes-no question answerer. So basically, you might say, is there a trapdoor in this room? And then you'd roll on the Oracle table. And if you got an 8, it would be no, but no, there's not a trapdoor, but you do find something strange scratched into the floor when you lift up the rug.
There you go.
Thank you, my love. They gave me barely any whipped cream, those losers. Actually, there's one other thing I will bookmark, which is that they have this really fun keywords table that you can roll on when you just need an idea. So that leaves me with this stack to bring with me to the table. I have asked my players to bring a level 5 character. I'm playing with just 3 players, my husband Josh and my friends Jesse and Laura. Surprising no one, I feel nervous. That's just sort of my normal state, to be honest. What if the game ends up being boring or the randomly generated things just aren't fun? I have spent so much time and so much energy working really hard on preparing games and writing adventures and coming up with things that I think will make the game more fun once we're at the table. So naturally, I believe that prep has value. That if I wasn't doing that, games would be worse. So of course, I'm afraid this game is gonna suck. But at the same time, the amount of prep that I feel like I have to do in order to run a good game is just so high that it prevents me from running as many games as I would like. Because it isn't just about finding the time to run the game, it's also about having the time to do as much prep as I feel like is necessary. If I felt confident that I could run games with no prep, or even just with less prep, I would be able to run more. I mean, I guess that's all I can do. The whole point of this is that I'm not gonna prep anything. I gotta find something else to focus on until we play. I just got this book, No Place Like Homebrew, from today's sponsor, Roll and Play Press, and it is over 200 pages of world building inspiration. It's great for building settings from scratch or expanding existing campaigns, like the one I'm about to start GMing. The book is color-coded by type of content, and there are full indexes at the back, so it's super easy to find whatever I'm looking for, but just for fun, I'm still gonna put these little sticky tabs on my favorite parts so I can flip right to them. This ancient nation that traveled through time, and check out that art, all made by humans, by the way, no AI, we love to see it. This hot pirate captain, who I'm sure has other great qualities. Just bookmarking her real quick. And this monster is terrifying. Yes, I will be freaking out my players with you. There's everything from NPCs and monsters to factions and businesses. Need a tavern, a soldier, a god? It's all here. Everything is system neutral, so it'll work with my D&D game or any other fantasy RPG. And if you're a new GM, there's a bunch of guidance to help light the way. When you buy the physical book, you get a free PDF too. Use the code GDHomebrew for 10% off No Place Like Homebrew at the link in the description. I may need to adjust my definition of favorite and order some more sticky tabs.
Hello, come on in.
Thank you for joining me for a completely randomized D&D one-shot. I have no idea what is gonna happen, and neither do you.
We're gonna play Dungeons and Dragons.
That's actually a good point. Once everyone was at the table, it was time to do the thing I had been dreading most, start the game. Under normal circumstances, this would be the one part of the session that I had complete control over. I would know the setting, the plot hook, the relevant characters, just little luxuries like context. But for this game, the premise itself had to be randomized. Let's start by randomizing what adventure we're gonna do. Here we go, a D20. 12. A coven of hags steals cherished memories from travelers. I shouldn't have read that out loud. It would have been way more interesting if you guys didn't know it was hags. I'm gonna try it again.
And don't read it aloud.
I'm doing it again.
I like that one though.
Too late.
Let me put this in my brain. All right. You are on the road. You are traveling to a destination where you have been called to provide aid. The rolling table gave me a natural disaster was actually caused by magic gone awry or a cult's villainous plans. So I put the characters on the road, told them they were headed off to help after a natural disaster, and then asked for character descriptions to buy myself time for all the sweat-soaked gears in my head to start turning. The first disaster that popped into my head was a flood, at least partially because I immediately saw an opportunity to use an aboleth, one of my all-time favorite monsters. Horrifying aquatic creatures with a talent for mind control? Finally, some representation. The characters met the mayor of the town and started asking questions. Questions which I, of course, did not know the answer to. It was time for the dice to start carrying some weight around here.
Can you think of any particular reason that somebody might want to flood your town?
The dice just told me yes, but I don't know what the reason is. So wait, what if we do it's a keyword table? All right, we got heckin' 552, which is orb. Yes. We have an orb that is much coveted by those outside of the town.
Oh, they want to steal it.
Perhaps, or to destroy it, or to use it, I don't know.
What does it do?
What
orb?
does it do?
That's the real question.
Crypt. It opens the crypt.
Oh, a locked tomb situation.
Yes, and we are very cautious with the orb because we do not wish to open the crypt. It must stay locked forever.
If I may be so bold, Mayor, why is it so imperative that the crypt remains locked?
I do not know. It has been passed down generation over generation to never open the crypt, or it will be the death of the town, the destruction and death of the town. The orb is the key, and it is the mayor's duty to protect it. It was pretty wild to watch random prompts turn into coherent plot hooks before my very eyes. Even if something didn't immediately make sense to me, the players would react to it like it did, and suddenly we had lore. Their theories and interpretations could easily become canon, all I had to do was agree with them. It turns out I wasn't actually carrying the whole story by myself. Everyone at the table was trying to connect the dots and figure out what all these clues meant. The only difference was that normally, as the DM, I would already know the answers, and this time I was solving the mystery alongside them. It felt less like guiding them through a story and more like discovering one. Usually when players are theorizing at the table, I have to sit there pretending they haven't immediately guessed the plot twist, but this time when they started speculating, I got to be like, oh damn, maybe it is about that. You might have noticed two things in that clip. One is that the mayor spontaneously developed an English accent about halfway through. Oh, I changed his voice into Aldrin's voice.
It's fine.
But the other thing you might have noticed is that crypt immediately felt more meaningful than orb did, right? When I rolled orb, I was clearly scrambling a little. Is the orb valuable, dangerous, magical? Is it just sitting there glowing ominously because this is fantasy and orbs are contractually obligated to do that? But as soon as we got that second prompt, it felt obvious. What does the orb do? It opens the crypt. Why do people want it? Because they want to get into the crypt. Duh. This was something that happened over and over in this game. The further we played, the more context we built up, the more each randomly generated clue made sense. A little later, the characters were questioning a Kenku NPC that the dice so helpfully generated for me. We were clearly on the same page about weird little guys and how foundational they are to any story.
My name is Gawain Battlekind.
Battlekind.
You might recognize me as a famous country music singer.
Trouble in Tarnation.
That's exactly right.
It's actually a really good rendition.
I had no idea what she knew or whether or not she was trustworthy. All I knew was that she was a Kenku, her name was Hilda, and she was very into shiny things. So when Jesse's artificer created a magically shiny coin, the party's investigative strategy basically became jingling keys in front of a toddler, which unfortunately worked. Hilda was ready to start divulging information I didn't have.
I would love to know a little bit about this flood.
Horrible flood.
Look me in the eyes. Do you know what caused the flood?
Water.
Yeah, that's right. But do you know if anybody, maybe anybody in this town, maybe somebody a little bit fishy, or somebody looking for an orb might have caused the flood in some way, shape, or form?
They love the orb.
Who loves the orb?
Faith.
Faith.
They of the faith.
Who is they of the faith?
Who is they of the faith?
They may have successfully bribed my NPC with shiny objects, but I had a weapon of my own, being annoying. The dice told me that Hilda knew something about whoever was after the orb, and when the keyword table gave me the word faith, it felt less like a prompt and more like confirmation. We already knew that this flood was either magic gone awry or a cult's villainous plans. Okay, dice, cult it is. It felt like it was getting easier by the second. Every decision made the next one clearer. Once we knew there was a crypt and an orb and a cult, I didn't need to randomize every detail anymore. Some answers were just obvious. Of course the cult wants the orb. Of course they want to open the crypt and release something horrible. You don't join an evil underwater orb cult to do community service. I don't know why this surprised me, but after maybe the first hour, I found myself rolling a lot less. The setup was random, but once the story had momentum, the gameplay looked a lot like any other session. Speaking of any other session, the Oracle, that's gonna be on the back of my DM screen forever now. There are all kinds of small decisions in any D&D game that I didn't plan for or just don't have an automatic answer for. Is there anything interesting in this room? I don't know, let's roll for it. Is this NPC secretly in love with that other NPC? Let's see if the dice are hopeless romantics. When my players decided to make a fake orb and use it as bait to lure out the cultists, they naturally had questions about what the orb looks like, which naturally did not matter at all, making it the Oracle's business, not mine.
How do you want to create your fake orb?
I mean, like I said, I've got like a +7 to my masonry, so I can make like a stone orb that looks
And
like a
make it
reasonable
glow.
effect and make it glow. I don't know if the original glows.
Yeah.
Let me just really quick ask if the orb glows. No.
Alright, cool. Even better.
Not only was it easier, but the answers were usually more interesting than the ones I would have come up with on my own. Normally, if I haven't planned something and there's no obvious story reason for it, I'll kind of default to no. No, there's nothing unusual here. No, the blacksmith is not having an affair. But when those questions are random, the world feels a little more surprising and alive. Especially since the Oracle isn't just giving you yes-no answers. Sometimes it's giving you yes and, or no but, or yes but, or whatever. So sometimes the no comes with a little consolation prize, and sometimes the yes comes with a complication. And all of this means that every roll is just a little bit more interesting and a little bit more likely to create story around itself.
How does a flood happen in the first place?
Are we next to a river or something that flooded, or?
Let me see. No. And what's even stranger is that you are, like, very inland. Also, when you have players like mine who ask approximately 1,000 questions, outsourcing some of those tiny decisions is actually such a relief. When you hit hour 3 and your brain is melting and your players are like, does his clothing look expensive? You can just roll the dice and then get right back to disassociating. Once we got into the swing of things, something started happening to me. All the nerves I felt about how I was going to incorporate all these random things into a game disappeared, and instead I started feeling excited about the random rolls. I was curious about what was going to happen and eager to find out, just like if I were a player myself. Well, they can't do the ritual with only, well, I don't know. Can they do the ritual with only 2 of them? Oh, yeah, they can. And they can even do it with 1. That's what the Oracle just told me. Making the story unpredictable even to me made me let go of a pressure that I didn't even realize I was carrying. The pressure to steer the story in the correct direction. Even when I'm trying to stay flexible and responsive to my players, if I've prepped something, there's always at least a tiny part of my brain going, please interact with the thing I created. Maybe the players negotiate with the bandits instead of fighting them, sure, but they still need to engage with the bandits somehow. Maybe they break into the vault in an unexpected way, but they still need to care about the vault. There's always this low-level anxiety that the players are just one bizarre decision away from cliff diving directly off the edge of my notes. But in this game, there were no notes. There was no correct direction. If the players became obsessed with some random detail, then great, so am I. We're all just following the same strange breadcrumb trail together. Way more than a normal D&D game, I felt like I was actually a player too. Not in the sense that I had a character, but just in the sense that I was playing a game. If you're thinking, wow, sounds great, maybe all games should be completely randomized, let's not put the dragon ahead of the dungeon here, because there's something I haven't fessed up to yet. I was breaking my own rules. Not maliciously, and at first not even on purpose, but the further we got into the game, the less I was randomizing. And by the time we hit the final battle, I made every single decision myself. I decided that the mayor got ambushed by the cultists, mind-controlled, and sent to the crypt with the real orb. I decided how many bad guys were at the crypt, and what stat blocks they used, and what they were doing. And I chose what was in the crypt, waiting to be released. By that point, I wasn't really running a random game anymore. I was just running a regular D&D game. But wait, don't start throwing tomatoes yet. I promise I can explain myself. One of the first things they did right after meeting the mayor was jump into the deepest floodwaters to investigate, right at the center of town where the flood originated.
Queen, you like to swim, right?
I guess I jump in reluctantly.
Let me get an Arcana check from you, actually.
Oh, it's 21.
You can feel, in fact, you can almost kind of taste in the water, gross, close your mouth, there's sewage in here, that there was magic in this area.
What's it taste like? The magic.
Conjuration, which is kind of lemony.
Mmm.
There was a high-level conjuration spell cast around the area of this well recently. While Gwyn was underwater, my gut started telling me that he should be attacked. He was swimming in murky water at the site of a suspicious disaster. Of course he should be attacked. And frankly, so should my terrible new neighbor, whom you can hear idling on his motorcycle for 10,000 years in the background. Basically, here's what I'll tell you.
Do you want me to go ask him to stop?
No, it's fine. I think he's finally leaving.
Moron.
Okay.
I'm actually getting a motorcycle.
No, you're not.
No, you won't. I'll steal it and throw it away.
But it was the very beginning of the game, and I thought to myself, an attack wouldn't be random, so that would be cheating. I hadn't built in any systems to randomly trigger events, like, I don't know, rolling for wandering monsters every 10 minutes or something. Choosing to add monsters felt like putting my thumb on the scale, so I ignored my instincts and I did nothing. It didn't take long for me to realize I chose wrong. I could just feel it in my storyteller gut. Sure, the specific challenge was to run a random game, but the goal is always to run a good game. So from that point on, I trusted my gut when it spoke to me, even if that meant ignoring a chance to generate something randomly. And the longer the game went, the more my gut was saying. Randomization can be a great resource for ideas, but it cannot create a good game. Sure, the prompts were random, but it was me and my players who interpreted them. The Oracle gave me answers, but only to questions me and my players asked. The dice generated ingredients, but we were the ones who cooked. And ate. And left no crumbs. I think that's the real distinction. Randomization is good at generating ideas, but humans are much better at generating meaning. The dice can answer questions like, what strange object do they find? Or is this person lying? But they can't spot when tension is bleeding away, or when it's time to bring back something that was foreshadowed earlier, or when a scene has gone on just slightly too long and it's time for something horrible to crawl out of the water. That stuff is instinct. You already know when tension is building, when something feels suspicious, when a reveal reveal would be satisfying. Your brain has been absorbing story patterns your entire life through reading books, watching movies, playing games, reading 2,000-word creative writing exercises disguised as "Am I the asshole?" Reddit posts. And that's why by the end of the game, I had stopped rolling on random tables. It wasn't because the randomization had failed, it was because eventually it became easier to trust myself than to outsource every choice to probability. Once the cult had the orb and the crypt contained something ancient and terrible, I didn't need the dice to tell me where the story was going. Random tables make good creative support tools, but they are not a replacement for a dungeon master. And I'm sure you know where this is going. Neither is a high-tech predictive text machine that does the same thing but in full sentences, and while using tons of rare earth metals and millions of gallons of water. The real job of the DM isn't generating ideas, it's handling pacing, escalating tension, recognizing what the players care about, and turning all of that into something that feels coherent and meaningful. The big realization for me here wasn't that I didn't need to prep or that I did need to prep. It was that my prep isn't the key to a great game, my intuition is. This didn't end up teaching me a lesson about prep, it taught me a lesson about trusting myself. I still like to prep. I have ideas about what I think would be fun and exciting, and I like being able to point the game in the direction of those ideas. I like being able to homebrew monsters or magic items, make interactive props, study monster stat blocks beforehand so I don't finish the combat and then go, oh crap, I forgot these guys can go invisible. But this game showed me that I don't have to be afraid of my players wandering off my nicely prepared path. Whether I know what's next or not, I have what I need to guide my players through a compelling story.
Well, I think this calls for a song.
Ooh, about this?
We stopped the mayor from doing a terrible summoning.
Well, you should mention that I'd been
The
mind controlled.
aboleth was going to destroy everything.
That was a great rhyme.
Yeah,
I can't believe you just improvised that. Beautiful.
He's a bard.
If you want to watch me putting myself through a similar kind of exposure therapy, check out this video where I try to kill my parents to become a tougher DM. Kill their characters. Try to kill my parents' characters, obviously.